Pandemic Aftermath. By A.S. Geek 2012. Chapter 36. Reunions and Reconciliations. Jenny finds she is no longer in the soft bed she lay down in late Friday night. Her hopes to enjoy uninterrupted sleep in the sumptuous hotel suite in Denver that Twilight arranged for her and the rest of the formerly incarcerated are dashed as she opens her eyes to a plain beige ceiling and soft lighting. What was a bed now is a couch. Ah, you're awake. Jenny bolts upright, and her heart skips a beat as her gaze falls on the balding man in the seat opposite her, a pad and pen in his hands. I hope you had a nice rest, Miss Tanner, says Psychic calm. Considering what has happened to you of late, you certainly needed it. Jenny glances around but sees nothing more than the same office in which she first met the Dream Warden. She slowly swings her legs over the edge of the seat and sits up. Something wrong? Psychic asks. Are the accommodations not to your liking? Jenny levels her gaze at him. I expected to see a courtroom, to be honest. Ah, I see. No, you are not being judged, not at this time. Not at this time. You've suffered a mental trauma, Psychic says in a tone Jenny could almost call concerned. A brief one, but a trauma nonetheless. It is best you recover from that first. Jenny frowns. But I'll be judged eventually. Yes, though if I need to meet with you again, we'll continue to use this setting. There's no reason to be overly dramatic. Twilight told me that if I'm put on trial. Again, this is not a trial. Jenny raises her voice. Then I have the right to call people to speak in my defense. That has already happened, Psychic states. It has. Prior to seeing you, I have visited both Twilight Sparkle and Princess Luna. They both explained the extenuating circumstances surrounding the latest use of your mind-altering magic. I had consent, at least from some of them, Jenny murmurs. This was pointed out to me, yes, Psychic says. And will it matter at all? Everything matters, Miss Tanner. We take any and all circumstances into account. When the time comes, we'll wish to understand your feelings on the matter. And that makes a difference. Most certainly, says Psychic. Just as there is a distinct difference between a human who guns down a stranger on the street and one who shoots a person breaking into his home. Intent is important. Jenny gives him a wary look. My intent was to protect my friends. This is understood. Are you sure? Jenny says. You said you know what happened to me. Yes, we are aware. Then you know that Ryan could have destroyed my mind if it wasn't for Luna and Starlight. We are fully aware of Ryan and his crimes, Psychic says. He will face justice. The Dream Wardens can assure you of that. What he has done is reprehensible. And how am I any better than him by your standards? Jenny demands. As I have said, it comes down to intent. We do not have to visit this now. I had come merely to inform you that the final disposition of your recent conduct has been delayed so long as you refrain from using that aspect of your power. Jenny shivers and tries not to draw her arms in, as if she is reliving the moment the agent had struck her across the face. Starlight told her that she had cleared Jenny's mind of the worst of what Ryan had done, and after only one more session, the rest would be gone. Little could be done for her memories, however. The memory of being too scared to contact the narrative is still with her, making her shun it despite how increasingly desperate it is for her attention. It is not the normal sort of eagerness which accompanied showing her what is happening elsewhere or suggesting a course for the future. I already knew those agents were corrupted, Jenny says. We all did. That has already been noted, Psychic says. I felt like I was damned if I did and damned if I didn't. As I said before, we don't need to visit. Well, maybe I do. Jenny yells. You ever think of that? Psychic considers, then simply nods and crosses one leg over the other. I understand. Please, continue. There was no right choice to make, Jenny says in a lower but no less agitated voice. I tried not to use it, but I was scared out of my wits. I barely even remember what pushed me over the edge. It was likely so frightening that I just blocked it out. I can take a guess, but I will refrain from mentioning it in case this is a memory not ready to resurface. Like you care all of a sudden, Jenny mutters. At the moment, I am here in the capacity of a psychiatrist and not a warden. Psychic taps the pencil against his chin. Have you considered seeing one in the waking world? Starlight suggested counseling. Yes. I would take her up on that suggestion. We can do only so much in the dream realm. Jenny sighs in exasperation. Suddenly Psychic is exuding compassion, as if he really is sincere in his concern for her. As if sensing her thoughts, Psychic sets the pad and pencil aside. I stated your judgment is delayed, but I will reveal that I have already made up my mind in the matter. Jenny tenses but otherwise manages not to cringe. I am going to push very strongly for leniency and no punishment. Jenny stares. You are? Psychic nods. I believe my compatriot in North America, Phobia Remedy, is also so inclined. Jenny feels a sense of immense relief, but it is short-lived. She narrows her eyes. What's the catch? Catch, Miss Tanner? I've been talking to Twilight and Starlight about the wardens. None of you strike me as being flexible. Psychic considers for a long moment, his eyes becoming troubled. Phobia and I have had many discussions of late. We are of the opinion that certain changes we planned for the wardens as a whole may need to come sooner rather than later. Such as lifting the veil of secrecy, for one. It does make it hard on me, Jenny says. My aunt already knows something is up. She's going to start demanding answers from me. Perhaps I will make a case for taking her into our confidence, says Psychic. Jenny almost snorts. She could just picture her aunt in an all-out pissing contest with the Dream Wardens. She isn't sure the Wardens would win. What brought this on? This isn't just about me, is it? Think of yourself and the events surrounding you as a catalyst, Psychic says. Human magic is something we did not expect to see in our lifetimes. We are ill-equipped to deal with it. Our original purpose was to deal with night ponies and the occasional mind magic from the other tribes. Humans like you and Ryan are making us realize a change in our approach may be in order. Is that all? Psychic steeples his fingers. We may have become a bit too insular, for lack of a better term. The fact that the wardens were so split on dealing with the waking world during this crisis clearly bears this out. Jenny could have done without ever hearing of the Dream Wardens, but she holds her tongue in that regard. Psychic is doing the equivalent of extending the olive branch. It would not help the situation to beat him over the head with it. At the same time, she is not going to let him get away with the least bit of ambiguity. So, what this boils down to is, I'm off the hook, Jenny says. I didn't quite say that, says Psychic. The wardens will need to meet as a whole to discuss the matter. Yet with Phobia and I recommending leniency, it will take only one more warden to decide as such and prevent a majority in favor of punishment. Do I get any say? If we cannot immediately reach a consensus for leniency, then we will call you before us. I am fairly confident it will not come to that. Jenny nods slowly. She realizes she should just accept this. It certainly would take a load off her mind and heart. Yet so much of what has happened, and is still happening, is so shrouded in mystery that she wants as many answers as she can get. Okay, so, last question. Why? Why what, Miss Tanner? Asks Psychic. Why are you set on leniency? Miss Tanner, I was a psychiatrist for 30 years before ETS. Out of all of us, I know best what stress and strong emotions can do to the thought process. I could have made the same decision if the circumstances were different. Perhaps, says Psychic. But it is best not to speculate on what might have happened, but to focus on what did. This would not be the first time I have advocated for leniency of an accused due to their mental state at the time. Jenny nods again and chooses not to pursue it any further. With Fuller no longer a direct threat, she doubts she would need to call on that aspect of the narrative anytime soon. This could be the last time that she has any dealings with the wardens, which suits her just fine. I guess I don't have any more questions, then. Thanks. Psychic nods. There is just one more matter I wish to mention, and then we can conclude this session. Jenny squirms in her seat but says nothing. We have yet to properly contact Nightsong in the dream realm. Jenny looks askance at Psychic. Who's Nightsong? Ryan's real name, or at least as he was known as a pony. Of all the names she thought Ryan might choose for himself, that would have been the last on her list. We can see him only dimly, Psychic continues. We need him linked if we are to properly pacify him until he has had a chance to face justice in the waking world. You're going to ask me about Luna's spell? Yes. Neither Twilight nor Luna has approached Jenny about it since she was released from Midrock. She knows part of the reason is likely awaiting word from Starlight that Jenny has recovered, but part of her hopes it means they abandoned the idea altogether. I take it Luna still wants to cast it on me. We're requesting that of her, yes. Jenny sighs. Realize you are under no obligation, Psychic says. This is your decision. Neither I nor our fellow wardens will pressure you, other than to state this will help ensure he cannot use his abilities to escape. Jenny clenches her hands into fists. No one in the world wants to see Ryan burn in hell more than she does. He is on the same tier as Sunset Shimmer, someone who has no compunctions about molding her into something more to their liking. At the same time, she feels the spell itself is yet another intrusion into her life. Luna has already stated that she will likely see Jenny's most buried feelings and memories. The fact that it would be cast as she sleeps is little comfort, as it simply associates the experience with the Dream Wardens despite them handing her a get-out-of-jail-free card. Let me ask you something, Jenny says. If I do this, will this be the last time? The last time for what? Psychic asks. I feel like I've been an experimental test subject for the past week. I want time to myself, with no intrusions from any magical beings except those I choose to be with. Naturally I have no control over what fate may bring your way, Miss Tanner, Psychic says. But I can at least assure you there will be no interference from the Dream Wardens unless you give us cause to act. Jenny takes the statement at face value. Hopefully, this is the last time she will ever have to deal with the dream realm or the narrative. She is thoroughly done with both. Asterisk. Sam stared at his sister across the threshold of the door to her hotel room early that Saturday morning. On the drive over, he had envisioned what he would say to her, and yet now that all flew from his head the moment he laid eyes on her. Beverly broke the awkward moment. Her eyes glistening, a smile spreading across her lips, she leapt forward and pulled her brother into a tight embrace. God, I've missed you, Sam. Thank you for coming to see me. As much as Sam wanted to avoid the self-recrimination that had gotten him nowhere in the past week, it all came flooding back in that one statement. Even as he wrapped his arms around Beverly, he uttered a wrenching sigh as he said, "You shouldn't be thanking me for anything. I wasn't there for you. I didn't lift a finger to help all that time you were in the camp." Beverly drew back and shook her head. "No, Sam, stop." "But it's true," Sam cried. "I was no better than our old man." Beverly glanced to the side. "Let's not do this in the hall, please. There are ponies in the nearby rooms that we might wake up." Beverly whirled around and headed inside, her tail brushing against Sam's legs as if in a reminder of her predicament. His gaze fell on her hooves, and he shuddered. Despite already knowing what she looked like in her partial state, he had never seen it in person. Perhaps if he had, he would have had more sympathy for her. Or it would have just made him more insistent she rehumanize. Sam stepped inside and closed the door behind them just as Beverly sank onto the edge of the bed, her tail curled in her lap. Her ears drooped slightly, and she cast her gaze downward. Without looking up, she said, "If anyone should apologize, it should be me. I made everyone's life hell for a stupid wish." Sam ran a hand through his hair. Beverly, from what Connie told me, people were after not just you but at least one of the others you were with. I don't think you made anything any worse than it would have been. Beverly shook her head. If I had just rehumanized and not become a fugitive, maybe Jenny would have discovered someone was after her before long. Instead, she was like the others, too preoccupied with protecting me. She wrapped her arms around herself. I feel like a fool now. Sam sat down next to his sister. Look, we all make mistakes. No one in this room knows that more than I do. Beverly looked at him. What mistakes did you make? Well, not considering your situation, for one. Beverly frowned. My situation is me wishing for something I can't have. Are you sure of that? Sam asked. I was told you were all in cahoots with Princess Twilight and Princess Luna. Surely between the two of them there's a chance they can get you what you want. Beverly was silent for a long moment. Yes, Twilight mentioned that to me on our way over here yesterday. She said if that's what I really want, she'll pull whatever strings she needs to in order to allow me passage to Equestria long enough to be transformed. Had this been as little as a week ago, Sam would have met this development with chagrin, and he would have railed at the equestrians for playing to her silly fantasies. Instead, he smiled faintly and said, well, see, you can get what you want after all. Except I'm not sure it's what I want anymore. Come again. Beverly cast a glistening gaze at him. It's been made very abundantly clear to me in the past few days that I was suffering from a delusion after all. Sam wiped his face with his hand. Beverly, please, ignore whatever I've ever said about. No, hear me out, please, this is difficult enough. Sam heard the anxious quaver in his sister's voice and quieted. Beverly let out a ragged sigh. I had the notion that being a pony meant living in a world of peace and harmony. It meant leaving behind strife and want. I've been shown that's not the case at all. Ponies just exchange one set of problems for another. Yeah, maybe, but in general most are friendlier and more supportive of each other, said Sam. I really can't fault you for wanting that, not after having to live with our abusive father for so long. It's really hard for me to explain what I'm thinking right now, said Beverly. It's all wound up in the discussions I've had with Jenny. We're both people trying to run away from our problems. I feel becoming a pony now would be forever tainted by that. But you can't keep living in this halfway state. No, I can't. Beverly looked squarely at Sam. I decided last night. I'm going to rehumanize. Sam was about to protest, but silenced himself as he realized he was just about to discourage her from the very thing that he had wanted from the beginning. Now the victory seemed bitter, as bad as if he had forced it upon her. And you're absolutely sure you came to this decision on your own? Beverly started nodding. And this has nothing to do with anything I ever said to you. I won't lie and say your words didn't matter, said Beverly. But I'm not doing this to please you. I'm doing this because I feel this is right for me. And all because of your conversations with a 15-year-old girl, said Sam in a neutral voice. Beverly tilted her head. What's that supposed to mean? It means, Sam trailed off and frowned. It means, I was about to do it to you again. I was going to sound like I didn't trust your judgment no matter what you decided. I keep thinking that I know what's best for you when I clearly don't. Beverly managed a small smile and wrapped an arm around her brother. You meant well, Sam. Sam leaned into Beverly. I'm just afraid of becoming like our old man, trying to control everything and everyone around him. I don't want to do that to you. Beverly's smile widened. If it helps any, there was something else that helped convince me that I didn't need to become fully pony. What's that? My friends. Sam shook his head. I don't follow. I was convinced that I could never make friends as a human, that I couldn't trust anyone, said Beverly. I believed that becoming a pony would fix all that. Then I wound up making friends with Jenny. Then I found I could put my trust in someone like Eileen despite how brash and unapproachable she could be. Sam shifted anxiously at Eileen's name but gave no voice to the thoughts she had conjured. I did that on my own, said Beverly, some pride creeping into her voice. I didn't need to be a pony for that. Sam glanced at her horn and gave her a wry smile. Sure you want to give up being able to move things with your mind. I got along without that for years. I won't miss what I never had. Sam's smile widened, and he hugged his sister. Just so long as whatever you do makes you happy. That's all that matters to me anymore. Beverly hugged him back. Thank you, Sam, for being so supportive. Please, don't let whatever mistakes you feel you've made eat at you like this. Sam uttered a heartfelt sigh. I'll try. I suppose I should tell you, Beverly said in a delicate voice. Eileen is in the same hotel. Yeah, I know. Are you going to see her? Sam sighed. I suppose I should. Even if she just wants to yell at me for abandoning her, at least we'll have some closure. Beverly drew back and smiled. Really, I don't think Eileen will do that. She's changed as a person since you last saw her. Sam could believe that. He wasn't sure he believed yet that he had changed as well. Asterisk. Because of her role in recent events at Midrock, Sunny had not been able to accompany her sister to Denver when they were released on Friday. By the time they had finished debriefing her, and final word had come down from the FBI director's office that Sunny would be exonerated for her actions at the facility, it had been late enough that all Sunny wanted to do was crawl into bed. Yet as soon as the sun had come up Saturday morning, she wasted no time in dashing off to see her sister. So anxious was she to stretch her wings after being cooped up in Midrock for so long, she chose to fly back to Denver using nothing but her own wings. Word of what had happened at Midrock was spreading fast. It was all the news media could talk about. In the pony communities, it spread like wildfire. Several times during her flight, Sunny was greeted enthusiastically by other Pegasi she passed along the way. Two even wanted her autograph. Sunny tried to accept the praise for what it was, just thanks for playing a part in correcting a great injustice. The revelation Goldie had bestowed upon her the other day, however, still resonated with her. It had been almost a relief to have come out of that cloud of fog and mist still very much the Pegasus she had been. Soon the skyline of Denver loomed in the distance. Prior to leaving, she had looked up the hotel Jenny and the rest were staying at in Google Satellite View so she had a sense for what it looked like from the air. She had also found a map of the building's interior on the hotel's website. Sunny didn't bother going through the lobby. All the rooms on the side of the hotel where they were staying had balconies. She flew over to one on the third floor and rapped her forehoof on the glass door, still hovering. When the curtain was pulled aside and Jenny's face appeared, it was all Sunny could do not to go right through the glass. As soon as the door slid open, Sunny pounced, wrapping her forelegs around Jenny's neck, her wings still flapping to keep her aloft. Jenny stumbled back from Sunny's weight and momentum, but she wrapped her arms around her sister's barrel ahead of the wings. Jenny, I'm so sorry all this had to happen to you, Sunny said in a choked voice. I didn't even know you were involved until that phone call. It's okay, really, Jenny said softly. It wasn't your fault. But if I had kept tabs on you more often, maybe. Jenny pushed her back. Sunny, stop it. Nothing you could have done would have stopped any of this from happening. I'm just glad it's over. Sunny smiled but gasped when she saw Jenny's lower lip. She gestured with a forehoof at it. Is that where you were struck by that agent? It's fine, Sunny, Jenny said in a neutral voice. It's been treated. Sunny nodded slowly, trying not to stare. Jenny's lip had swollen slightly, and the cut was scabbed over but looked fairly deep. She heard a footstep and glanced to the side, where Eileen smiled at her. Good to see you again. Same here, Aunt Eileen, Sunny said. Who else is here? They put Jenny and I in this room, said Eileen. Fire is sharing a room with Ted Miller. I don't think you know Wildy, but she has her own room. Jason Madsen, the agent that was helping out Heller, has gone home on leave. Sunny nodded. Has anyone had a chance to let Mom and Dad know what's going on? What about Bob? Jenny looked subdued, and Eileen said in an uneasy voice, we got some news about Bob. Sunny drew back from Jenny, still hovering. Is he okay? We're told he will be. Sunny felt a sense of dread come over her. What happened? Eileen frowned. Apparently that asshole Fuller was targeting Bob as well. He tried to have some sleeper agent take him out and steal his notes. Sunny gasped. Is he hurt? He was attacked by a crystal pony who tried to drain him. Twilight told us that he should be fine in a few days. Harold and Sarah are with him. I better get back to Pony Hope as soon as I can, Sunny said. He'll need all the support he can get. She paused. Wait. Notes? Notes on what? Eileen smiled faintly. Apparently he's been working on some advanced magic, as I suspected he was. Twilight is intending to visit him to see exactly what he's been up to. But won't he get in trouble for practicing illegal magic? Twilight managed to get the feds to hold off on any action until she's had a chance to investigate, said Eileen. You can probably ask her all this yourself, she's staying here as well. I'm not taking any chances, though. I fully intend to retain a lawyer for him. Sunny sighed as she realized she was not going to get back to a sense of normalcy anytime soon. The events of the past 2 weeks would have too many repercussions for her to just simply leave them behind. Perhaps her insistence on flying to Denver was just symbolic of her wanting to fly away from the past. So what are you all going to do now? Sunny asked. Move back to Colorado Springs. I don't think we can even if we wanted to, Jenny said. And I definitely don't, said Eileen. We were intending to come to Denver in the first place, we just sorta took a detour. I'm not sure what we're going to do once the princess is no longer hoofing, the cost of this place. Didn't you have a place to go? Sunny asked. Not really, said Jenny. I had intended us to live out of the car, said Eileen. At least until I could find some work and a place to stay. Sunny very nearly face-hoofed, not so much for Eileen's plans, typical for her, as Jenny going along with them. A knock came at the door. Eileen raised an eyebrow. Didn't sound like a hoof. I better go see what that's about. Sunny leaned in closer to Jenny and whispered, why on earth did you go along with this idea? Living out of a car? Seriously? Jenny frowned. Colorado Springs is not like it was when Mom used to take us there. There were military everywhere. Either they hassled me when I was with some pony friends, or they wolf whistled and catcalled when I was alone. She wrapped her arms around herself. And there was the magic bit. You knew what you could do already. Not all of it. I had no idea it could be that powerful, but I was afraid it would come out at the wrong moment, and some trigger-happy soldier would off me. I figured if worst came to worst, I could take refuge in the pony sector and... Excuse me, Eileen said as she stepped up to them in a resigned voice. I have some business with a former boyfriend. Sunny blinked in confusion and looked past her towards the open door, where a middle-aged man stood looking somewhat uneasy. I'll take it elsewhere, Eileen said. You don't need to hear any of this. All right, said Jenny as Eileen headed away. She waited until her aunt was gone before turning back to Sunny. Anyway, yeah, at that point, anywhere was better than there. I did have pony friends there, but that was it. I didn't have any human friends save for who Aunt Eileen worked with at the cafe. Sunny nodded. I understand. Mom and Dad said you should have human contact again. Jenny fell heavily onto the sofa. Except now I don't know what kind of contact I need. Come again. Can I still really call myself human anymore, sis? Jenny said. I know I have to accept what's become of me, but I wish I understood more of what that is. Sunny flew over and sat next to her sister. I kinda had a similar experience lately. Hey. Sunny glanced away for a moment. Goldie, that is, Golden Sunshine, the other half of the council delegation, actually had the idea that I would ascend. Jenny stared for a moment, then smirked. You? An alicorn princess? Sunny rolled her eyes. Yes, I know, it's a silly idea but... Jenny snorted. Try ludicrous. I mean, seriously, would you even see any of that horn poking up through that curly orange mess you call hair? Sunny narrowed her eyes, but one corner of her mouth tugged upwards. Very funny. Jenny slowly smiled. At least you took it the way I had meant it. Sunny's own smile widened. It was hard to believe that just the other day she had lamented that perhaps they had drifted too far apart. She adopted a mock-indignant tone and said, I'll have you know that Princess Twilight Sparkle compared me to none other than Rainbow Dash. Oh, yes, I can see it now. Jenny said. I know exactly what Twilight said, I know Rainbow Dash. Rainbow Dash is my friend. You, Sunrise Storm, are no Rainbow Dash. Both of them broke up into laughter. God, were we really that bad? Sunny said. What's this we you speak of? Jenny said in a haughty voice. I was being eloquent at the time. Yeah, right. Jenny broke into a wide smile. She leaned over and hugged her sister. Now that you don't have feathers flapping in my face trying to make me sneeze, she said in a soft and slightly quavering voice. Sunny closed her eyes as she hugged her sister back, breathing in slow and deep just to take in Jenny's scent again. I have missed you, sis. Jenny drew back from the embrace, her eyes glistening. I sort of miss those days right before ETS hit, even though I knew it drove you crazy. At least we were together. Now it seems like the whole family is scattered to the winds. Jenny reached over and tugged at a wing feather. Sometimes literally. Thanksgiving is not that far off, Sunny said. And Christmas after that. We'll all get together for that, at least if I have anything to say about it. Jenny smiled. I'd like that. Sunny had not felt this content for some time. She hoped she could hold onto it for a long while. There would be so much to do in the coming months, and she was not sure she was up to it. Being able to draw on her family again would help immensely. Jenny stood up. Hey, you want to go look for Twilight? I know I need to talk to her about something anyway. Sunny nodded and leapt into the air, hovering before her sister. Sure. Jenny arched an eyebrow. What? Don't you ever walk anywhere anymore? Jenny asked with a slight smirk. Or trot, or whatever you colorful little horsies do. Sunny grinned. In a single word, no. I like my wings, Jenny. Maybe the circumstances around how I got them were wrong, but they're a part of me. Maybe Goldie's scheming to make me an alicorn did some good after all. It helped me accept myself better for what I am now and not what could have been. I can't help but think that was directed at me a bit, said Jenny in a subdued voice. Not directly, but, well, you can do something amazing, Jenny. It's part of you now, like my wings and my talents are to me. Yeah, I get that. I just need a little more time to deal with it. I can understand that, believe me. Jenny appeared as if she had something else to say, but shook her head. Anyway, let's go find Twilight. Sunny nodded. Sure. As she followed Jenny out of the room, Sunny had the sense that something was still bothering her sister, something she wanted to talk about but had no idea how to broach the subject. Sunny had to be patient. If she knew one thing about her little sister, nothing could be wheedled out of her, she had to come into it at her own time and place. Asterisk. Eileen looked at Sam once they had stepped out of the hotel room and was at a loss of what to say. Instead, she shoved her feelings aside for one more time and said, There's a lounge area where they serve breakfast, and I could use some strong coffee. You want to go there? Yeah, sure. Eileen nodded, and they headed towards the elevator. She had hoped to maintain the silence a little longer, but Sam broke it first. So, other than recent events, how's it been going? Eileen shrugged. It was going, not much more to be said. Where did you wind up? Springs, said Eileen. When they told us there might be an IT revival in the area, I thought that might be a good place to get back on my feet again. How'd it go? About as well as any of my plans go, Eileen said sourly. It sucked. I'm sure it wasn't your fault, Sam said in a neutral voice. Not like that day I wanted you to take me up on that insane idea to enter a quarantined area, right? Sam sighed. Look, about that. Not right now, Eileen said. I need that coffee first. Sam just nodded and subsided. They headed down to the breakfast area, where a mix of humans and ponies sat, some having breakfast provided by the hotel. A few of the latter looked over to Eileen and pointed, whispering among themselves. Eileen managed not to roll her eyes. In the pony community of Denver, Eileen and her friends were being hailed as heroes. People like Jenny and Sunny garnered more of the attention, but Eileen supposed she was hero by association despite feeling like she had done little more than keep her wits about her when people around her were losing theirs. She got her coffee and had them sit as far away from the others as possible. She took a long sip before finally saying, "Let's get this part out of the way right now. If you're harboring any guilt towards that day, you can stop right now. I've been made aware multiple times that I was acting stupid." It wasn't like it was just some random lark, Eileen, said Sam. You were worried about your son. I could have had a little sympathy. I really wasn't deserving of that sympathy at the time. You shouldn't go beating yourself up over that. I'm not, Eileen said in a lower voice. I said at the time. Sam remained silent and looked expectantly at her. Eileen took another sip of coffee and set the cup down. I've been going through life the last 6 months knowing I had to change as a person and thinking it all came down to me. Well, we're all responsible for our own actions, said Sam. That's not quite what I mean. I mean, well, at the risk of sounding like the ponies, we all need friends to help us. That's what I lost sight of. I'm sorry, I don't follow. Eileen shivered as she thought back to the cell at Midrock. She had been so despondent that she had failed so completely as a human being, she might have taken her own life if she had the means to do so. Only after she had learned how the others had banded together to try to save not just Jenny from Ryan, but the rest of them from Fuller had she come to realize why she insisted on hanging out with people like Fire. Sam, I'll level with you, Eileen said in a soft voice. I resented the fuck out of you for a while when you didn't take me to that town. I kept thinking, some goddamn friend he is. I can understand that, Sam said. I don't think you do. You were a friend. One hell of a friend. Sam blinked. Hey? For abandoning you. Yes, because that's what I needed. Sam just stared and said nothing. Eileen had told herself she was not going to break down into tears again, but they welled up anyway. She wiped her eyes with her hand. It was the kick in the ass I needed. The only thing I regret is missing the bigger message, that sometimes I need friends to help me get where I want to go. Further words were impossible, as she had become too choked up. Suddenly she felt someone hugging her, and she simply hugged back without thinking of it. It took her a few moments to realize it was Sam. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get all emotional like this, Eileen said in a quavering voice. Come on, it's okay, said Sam. He drew back from the embrace, his own eyes glistening. You're not the only one who's come to some uncomfortable revelations in recent days. Eileen nodded and took a deep breath to try to steady herself. I just wanted to let you know that I'm not upset with you anymore, and I don't want you to be, either. Sam nodded. Look, I know things can't be the same between us as they once were, but could you at least consider me a friend going forward? Yes, of course. Eileen had never felt this sort of emotion in a long while after accepting a friendship. All her claims of wanting to hang around Fire just to protect him from himself were just so much bullshit. What she had wanted was that friendship without wanting to admit that she needed it. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she had actually made progress. Sam returned to his seat. So, what are your plans? Are you staying in Denver? For now, said Eileen. There's really nothing left for me back in the Springs. Just so you know, the job market here is not that great. Eileen snorted. Name one place where it's any good out here. Do you have a place to stay? Sam asked. I assume you're not going to be in this hotel that much longer. I was going to start looking today. Sam nodded again and rubbed the back of his neck. Now, just as a last resort, mind you. I have space in my apartment. Eileen's eyebrows rose. It will be a little tight with you and Jenny, but I think we can handle it, Sam continued. Now, no obligations here. I know we're not a couple anymore. This is not some way to, Eileen smiled. I know. Thank you, Sam. I'll consider it. Asterisk. Twilight had arranged for a room for herself and Spike at the hotel so she could be close to the others at least until the last of their legal issues were sorted out. In his role as temporary regional director at Midrock, Anthony had released the others from incarceration as soon as he was able, citing improper arrest procedures and violations of civil rights. It was a highly unusual move, as generally such claims must wait to be decided in court, but he was backed up by the president, who was already arranging for pardons for the lot of them. At the moment, her main concern was for one person, and she addressed this to Starlight. What's your prognosis concerning Jenny? One more session with her, and I should have whatever is lingering of Ryan's magic out of her head, said Starlight in a subdued voice. Twilight nodded. And you don't believe she'll suffer any long-term mental issues? Magically, no. She was exposed to Ryan for a short enough period of time that there should be no trouble there. But you're worried about her emotional state? Yes, and I've already recommended counseling, said Starlight. Once I meet with Jenny later today, my work will be done. Twilight tilted her head. No follow-up. Any follow-up can be handled by one of a number of qualified equestrian mages we already have on Earth. Starlight gave Twilight a troubled look. I want to get back home as soon as possible, Twilight. Why do you? Twilight trailed off. Oh, you mean Trixie? I need to confront her about what she's done. Shouldn't you be leaving that to equestrian authorities? There's no way she can deny her involvement anymore. I know, but that stupid trick Blue Blood pulled at the end lets him claim he's not involved, said Starlight. If I can get her to confess to the whole conspiracy, that will help resolve this faster. What Blue Blood did, I'm told, is just a delaying tactic, said Twilight. He knows full well that it will be just a matter of time before that gem is located. Those shafts don't go very far and... Twilight, I'm sorry, but this is personal. Starlight cried. I feel like I've been betrayed. I trusted her, and she did this. I have to hear it from her own mouth. I have to know what she was thinking at the time. Or if she was thinking at all. Through the anger, Twilight could hear the despair in Starlight's voice. Starlight didn't make close friends easily, and she had considered Trixie one of that exclusive circle. Twilight could only imagine how traumatic this must be. I can't predict what she'll say, of course, but I don't think this is a reflection on you, said Twilight. You did nothing wrong. Starlight looked away, her ears drooping. Twilight stepped up to her and placed a hoof on her shoulder. Starlight. Maybe I should have done more, Starlight murmured. Made her feel more accepted. Not poke fun at her like I've done sometimes. You can only do so much for your friends, said Twilight. Trixie is capable of making her own decisions. It's not your responsibility to ensure she makes the right one every time. Yes, but maybe I could have been. Starlight trailed off and shook her head. Never mind, you're probably right. Either way, I have a flight booked to New York that leaves Denver at 1. I'll have to be out of here by 10. Twilight nodded. I understand. I was compiling a full report to Celestia about the Noble's plot, but I'll hold off completing it until I hear word from you concerning Trixie. Thank you, said Starlight. So, when are you going to see Bob? I'm hoping by tomorrow afternoon, said Twilight. I thought I would head over to Pony Hope with Sunny. Just what kind of advanced magic was he practicing? I don't know yet, but whatever it is, it had caught Fuller's attention. I knew he was something of a prodigy, but I never knew he was doing anything on his own, said Starlight. Depending on what he's done, I'm hoping it will give me some leverage in urging for the easing of restrictions on pony magic, said Twilight. Considering that he's just a colt, and he's already likely managed something significantly more advanced than his peers, it's only a matter of time before others emulate him. I'm just sorry I didn't see it for myself. Perhaps I should have inquired a little more closely. You can't think of everything. Besides, it's not our job to go rooting out ponies practicing illicit magic. I'm hoping that by the time you're ready to come back to Earth to teach magic, you'll be able to do something more substantial. What about the other tribes? I certainly hope I can gain some concessions there, as well, said Twilight. I hope so, said Starlight. Especially for the Pegasi. Oh. Starlight rolled her eyes. You don't know what it's like to hear Rainbow Dash endlessly complaining about it. She's really itching to teach Earth Pegasi personally. Twilight chuckled. I'm not sure we want to expose Earth Pegasi to her just yet. Starlight smiled weakly. She looked about to say something when there was a knock at the door. Twilight looked past her, her horn glowing as she opened the door. Oh, hello, Jenny, Sunny. What can I do for you? Well, I wanted to ask you something, and Sunny here wanted to learn more about what's going on with Bob, said Jenny. If you two have already talked about him, then Sunny probably knows as much as I do, said Twilight. But I'll answer what I can. Please, come in. Starlight turned towards Jenny as she stepped inside. Jenny, I need to leave town by 10. Would you be available at 9 for our last session? Sure, said Jenny. Thanks. I'm going to get some breakfast. See you later. Starlight headed out as Jenny and Sunny approached. Concerning Bob, said Twilight. All I really know is that he'll be all right in a few days, and he's involved in some sort of advanced magic research. Is he going to get into any trouble over this? Sunny asked in an anxious voice. If I have anything to say about it, no, said Twilight firmly. I've been warning about this multiple times now, that left to their own devices, the ponies of Earth will figure it out. It's how my ancestors did, and Sunset likely made it easier for them to come into their potential, since she would never have been able to teach them all on her own. Sunny, I think people are going to be too wrapped up in everything else that's happening to worry about one pony who can do advanced magic, said Jenny. They're already calling what Ryan did in Washington as a new 9/11. I'm just relieved cooler heads prevailed, said Twilight. The president came up with the idea of quietly approaching those who were potentially mentally compromised. Most of them immediately volunteered to go on leave or be examined by mental health professionals and equestrian mages. Sunny nodded. I'm glad we got it worked out. Twilight smiled. So am I, and I'm quite looking forward to seeing what Bob has been up to. Now, Jenny, you had a question for me. Jenny looked slightly uncomfortable. I hate to ask this, and I hope it doesn't sound insulting or something, but, how much can I trust Princess Luna? Sunny looked surprised at the question but said nothing. I can guess what this is about, Twilight said. The spell she wants to cast on you. I don't want to make it sound like I'm not grateful for Luna's help. Just from what I've heard about her, well, my Aunt Eileen heard about her little, 1,000-year banishment. Sunny blinked. Her what? Not to mention she seems a little more, I don't know, aloof I guess is the best word I can think of. I'm not sure how much you've heard about Luna's banishment, began Twilight. But all I can say is that since then she's wanted nothing more than being accepted as a loving force who helps guide Equestria's people. Yes, she's of a different personality than her sister Celestia, and to be honest, she can be hot-headed at times, but she really wants to do the right thing. Jenny nodded slowly. I've just been through a lot lately, and I don't want anyone touching me with magic that I can't put my complete trust in. I can assure you, Luna is deserving of that trust, but if it will help, I can be there as well when she casts the spell. Jenny managed a small smile. Thanks, that would help. Twilight returned the smile, but it was bittersweet. Starlight was not the only one who sometimes struggled with issues of self-worth when it came to making friends. Luna still had issues, and Twilight often wondered if her standoffish nature was a response to that. Perhaps recent events would be a learning experience for all of them. Asterisk. Ted had not been expecting any visitors, thus he greeted the sound of a knock on his hotel room door with some confusion and no small amount of trepidation. Despite having been assured by Agent Heller that there were no longer any outstanding warrants for his arrest, the events of the last few days had made him wary of unexpected visitors. As the hotel room had not been completely pony-adapted, he had no means by which to gaze out the peephole to see who it was. From the elevation and sound of the knock, it was obviously from a human. He reached up and pushed the handle down, hooking his foreleg behind it to drag open the door. The sight which greeted his eyes almost made him let go in shock. Connie, what are you? Before he could finish his thought, Connie rushed him, and despite his bulk and greater strength, he stumbled back. He let go of the door, but it hardly mattered, as Connie had shoved him a few feet back from the force of her embrace. It took Ted's mind a few moments to catch up and hug her back. I'm so glad you're okay, Connie said in a heartfelt voice. Ted sighed and closed his eyes. I'm surprised you want to see me at all. Connie drew back, smiling though her eyes glistened. Why wouldn't I? Ted gave her a pained look. For all the trouble I caused you. I was the one who wanted to help Beverly. You warned me against what I was going to do, and I didn't listen. Ted, it's all been said and done. It turned out all right in the end. Ted shivered. It didn't turn out so well for Ember, did it? Connie's smile faded. I know, but... Connie, that could have been your daughter, Ted said in a shaky voice. What if she had been killed? I don't think it does us any good to speculate on such things. Ted wanted to keep arguing with her, but he realized that all he was doing was looking for someone to blame. Everyone else he could possibly point to as a cause were far out of his reach, thus that left only himself. Is Christina okay? She's a bit shaken up, but other than that, she's okay, Connie said. Her school will be closed on Monday in remembrance of Amber. What about Peach Blossom? She's on leave indefinitely, Connie said in a somber voice. She's in need of counseling after what happened. Ted nodded once but made no further comment, lowering his gaze. I think you should talk to her, Ted. Ted shook his head without making eye contact. I'm the last person she would want to see. Connie cupped her hand under his muzzle. Ted, look at me. Ted reluctantly lifted his head. None of this is your fault. You did what you thought was the right thing at the time. But was it the right thing? I don't know anymore. Connie withdrew her hand. I could go on about how this ultimately served a greater purpose, but I don't think that will be any comfort to you. Ted gazed into Connie's face and only then did he see the slightly darkened circles under her eyes. Are you all right? You look like you haven't slept well. Connie gave him a warm smile. I suppose you're not the only one who spends time questioning what they've done. Or what they're going to do. Ted glanced past Connie at the hotel room door. If you're going to stay a bit, we might as well both get a little more comfortable. Connie nodded and stood. They headed over to the sofa, Connie reaching it first. Ted hopped into it on the other side, leaving a gap between them. He had not realized he had done so until he looked down and saw there was enough room between them for at least another human. Connie appeared to notice it as well and gave him a worried look. Ted raised his eyes to Connie, as difficult as it was. I haven't contemplated the future yet. Connie nodded. I'm not here to pressure you into anything. I feel like what happened has unraveled everything we tried to do. Connie smiled and shook her head. It hasn't. How can you say that after what happened? Have you watched the news yet this morning? I've been trying to avoid the news, Ted admitted. I'm afraid of hearing how my name will come up. The ponies of Greenwood Village have started a festival. Ted's eyebrows rose. A festival? But I thought they had cancelled the post-harvest event. It's not that, Connie said. It's to honor the two who died during the incident at the school. Wait, both? The human and the pony? Connie nodded. They see the FBI agent who died as much a victim as Amber was. Ted just stared in astonishment. The gesture was not lost on the human population. They're flocking to the festival in droves. She took out her cell phone. A monument was erected near the building where the FBI operation took place. Ted leaned forward as Connie showed him a picture on her phone. He gazed at a small statue of a human and a pony. The human was crouched beside the pony, his arm around the pony's shoulders. The pony likewise had a foreleg wrapped around the human. An inscription at the base read "United in Grief and Remembrance." Many dozens of flowers had been deposited around the monument, and just on the edge of the photo, a human was kneeling, hands together as if in prayer. Ted stared. How did they do that so fast? Connie smiled as she withdrew the cell phone. The artist who did the statue is named Living Marble. Take that to mean that's his particular talent. I'm told he considers this a crude work and wants to do a much larger one. Ted let out a long, relieved sigh. You had a hoof in this, Ted, Connie said softly. Ted shook his head. No, I didn't. Ted, if it wasn't for you. Ted frowned. If it wasn't for me, there wouldn't be a need for a memorial. You were right, I wasn't thinking about the public safety. I was just pursuing my own personal agenda. Ted, please, stop. Ted heard the anguish in Connie's voice and fell silent, looking at her with concerned eyes. Connie hesitated as if to collect her thoughts, or to calm her own tumultuous emotions. It's not going to do either of us any good to second-guess ourselves. No matter what happened, I feel that casualties were unavoidable. And all that falls squarely on the shoulders of Matthew Fuller. None of this would have come about if it hadn't been for him. Ted heard the anger in Connie's voice despite her attempts to suppress it. It made him feel a little better to know he was not the only one struggling to understand how he should feel in the wake of these events. What's going to happen to him? Ted asked. From what Anthony told me, it looks like he'll be formally charged on Monday, Connie explained. Several equestrian mages personally certified by Starlight Glimmer as experts in mind magic have been dispatched to Washington to examine the officials that Fuller had used Ryan on to gather evidence for both their trials. Ted struggled to find something or someone else to ask about, anything to avoid bringing the subject back to himself. Yet the more he avoided the topic, the harder it would get. Despite feeling that the decision he had come to was the right one, it still felt like he was abandoning Connie. I have something I need to tell you, Ted said. I'm not going back to my old job. I want to step down as council pony. Connie let out a sigh, but with a tone of sympathy and not frustration or admonishment. I can't say that this is a surprise, but I want to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. I'm just not cut out for this, Connie, Ted said. This is something I've been thinking about for a while now, even before all this happened. I knew you were experiencing some doubts. It's why I tried to encourage you as much as I did. I feel like I really haven't done anything. All I've done is followed your lead. Don't get me wrong, I was proud to help implement your ideas, and I think they need to be continued. And they shouldn't rely on any one person, said Connie. I wanted to build something that would outlast me. You have, Ted said in a soft voice. After what you just showed me, I don't think anyone can undo what you've done. Connie's smile widened. What we've done? But I haven't. Yes, you have, said Connie firmly. You need to look past recent events, Ted. I'm trying. It's not easy. Connie slid closer to him and draped an arm around him. I'm not going to try to convince you to keep your position. That's not what this is all about. I just want you to be aware that you did make a difference, and I can't help but feel that I'll lose someone who's given me more insight into the mind of the pony community than I ever would have had. Ted lifted his gaze to her and gave her a faint smile. I guess there's more to what ponies are thinking than just what the polls can tell you. You've definitely helped shape my perspective, said Connie. Christina really gives me only part of the story, and that's colored by the fact that she's a young, energetic foal who naturally has a more optimistic view on the world. I hope she never loses that. Ted paused before he added, if you want a recommendation as to someone to take my place, I have it. Oh? Who? Sheriff Dave. Connie's eyebrows rose. Really? He's looking to get out of law enforcement, Ted continued. Midnight may know more about the reasons why. In any case, Dave still wants to continue doing something important for the community. I'll talk to him, said Connie. If you're officially stepping down, I'll have the right to appoint a new council representative in your place until the next election. Oh, speaking of which, did that motion for a recall vote this year ever gain any traction? Ted asked in an anxious voice. Connie smiled. The scuttlebutt is that come Monday morning, the city council plans to hold a vote to quietly drop the matter. Good. Connie's smile turned wistful. Then again, you're not the only one who has some reservations about continuing on. Ted's pupils shrank slightly. You're not considering stepping down as well, are you? I have to admit, I have floated the idea, said Connie. And not because of the danger that my family was exposed to recently. I know that was unusual. It's more a case of where do I go from here? I'm not sure I follow. It's what you just said. It would be very difficult to undo what's already been done. My reasons for wanting to be in this position have changed radically since I first started, and now I feel like I've accomplished what I set out to do. Ted slowly smiled. Maybe you should aspire for higher office. That would certainly make Christina happy. Connie chuckled. I don't know if my ambitions run quite that high. All I know is, I have some thinking to do. I guess I was a little upset to hear you were considering stepping down. I feel you were the last of the old guard, so to speak, and could help ground anyone who followed me. Dave would be a good fit for that, I'm sure, Ted said. He just doesn't want to make the first overture. He'd rather it come from you. Connie stood. Then I'll contact him this coming week. She smiled. It's been good working with you, Ted, even when we had our differences. Ted climbed off the sofa and looked up at her. We had the same goals. That's what mattered. He lifted a forehoof towards her. Connie was about to present her palm to it, but instead crouched and drew Ted into an embrace. Don't ever be a stranger, Ted, I mean it. Ted chuckled. I'm a pony, Connie. Being a stranger is impossible for me. Connie laughed and pulled him into a tighter hug before drawing back and standing. Whatever you do, just promise me one thing. What's that? Always stay true to your convictions, Connie said. You may see your recent actions as problematic, but you had the right idea in the end. You helped put right a great injustice. Ted let out a ragged sigh, his eyes glistening. He still had his doubts about many of the decisions he had made, but he was happy to hear that Connie ultimately understood. As much as he might lament what he had done, he couldn't see himself acting any differently given the chance to do it all over again. He had been right all along, he was simply not cut out for politics. What had transpired in the past few weeks had gone beyond such petty things. He felt his future still lay in helping his fellow ponies, but he was not about to do that behind a desk. "I will, Connie," said Ted softly. "I promise." End of chapter 36. Reunions and reconciliations.